you got to treat it just like you treated the game. You got to study it. You got to put the time in it. You got to have something to talk about. You got to be relatable. You got to be personable.
This podcast is brought to you by Podcast Engineers. Podcast Engineers is one of the easiest ways to get your podcast edited and managed in a simple and sequential process. Hello and welcome to the Lost Over Everything podcast. This is the podcast where we receive stories, tips, and tactics from entrepreneurs who have done it. I'm Alex.
And I'm Owen Osinde.
And today, the brand has legs. You know what I'm saying? We have a special guest in the building, somebody who is an NBA champion, who has one of the best sports podcasts out. We got Matt Barnes on the show. Matt Barnes, what's going on? How are you?
Fellas, how you guys doing?
Fantastic.
We're blessed, man. We're blessed.
Most
Likewise,
definitely, man.
Likewise.
So to kick things off, we did something different. We actually played a one-on-one, and we want to get your reaction to us playing one-on-one. You know what I'm saying? And see what your thoughts are. All right. So I'm gonna share my screen with you real quick.
I'm gonna say my comments after, bro. I'm gonna say my comments. I'm not gonna say anything to get in Matt Barnes' head, but I'm gonna save my comments after.
All right.
Let's play it up, Al.
Yes, sir. Y'all see my screen?
Yeah, it's pulling up. So, Matt, just for context, this is a game up to 3.
Yeah, so quick game up to 3. You know what I'm saying? We're not gonna watch a full. You know what I'm saying? We got things to talk about.
Let's do it.
So start it off slow, air ball.
You see that jumper, Matt?
Boom.
That went in, right? Yeah, that looked good.
All right. All right. Look at him. He's trying.
Damn, look at that. I lost my... I know, like, that the video is kind of laggy, but, like, I think it hit the back of my foot.
All right, let's see if
your goal was the league, then you definitely had to beat Alex then, right? If your goal was the league and you've been playing your whole life.
I'll just let you see the resume, what you're about to see in this quick 1 minute.
Okay.
All right.
Oh,
cookies.
Yeah.
Oh,
that lead talk.
He had them clamps on me. All right, look at that. I think he put me on the spin cycle here. He's like spin.
That was a nice move. You got to make it.
Oh yeah, he made it.
And he made it. Okay.
A little spin cycle.
Oh, and he gives us the replay.
Okay. Look at that.
With the instant replay. You see me?
Spin cycle. I've been Michael.
You see me? All right. Listen, that's how to let y'all know. It's give y'all the replay and all that. All right.
Let's go, Al. Let show Matt how I finished you up, bro. Matt, look at this. See, Matt. If I was your height, 6'7", 6'8", I'd definitely be in the league with that jumper. Look at that.
It'd be over.
See that? Look at that smooth stroke. That's an NBA ready jumper right there, Matt.
So it's 2-1 right now, right?
It's 2-1 because I think that was a 3.
Oh, that was
a game.
Oh, that was a 2-pointer.
Yeah.
That was a game winner. You won because he counted twos. You know, and let me ask you something. In a one-on-one, is it fair to count twos up to 3? Or should it all be ones?
I mean, it just depends on the rules you got to make before. I mean, everyone's shooting threes now, so obviously threes are a big part of it. But I mean, that's up to y'all.
Word. Let me ask you something. What do you think about that? You know, well, what are your thoughts on like how the game has been moving to like, consistently shooting threes? You think that's like good for the game or just where it is?
I mean, I just think it's where the game is at. You know, I think the game is, in a great place right now with a lot of young talent. Obviously when I came in the league in the early 2000s, it was, live by the 3, die by the 3. There weren't teams winning by shooting the 3-point ball. It was more of an inside-out game. But, as, people like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson have come into the game, I think they've completely changed the dynamic of not only the NBA, but the way basketball overall has been played. I coach my kids who are 14, been coaching them since they were about 8 or 9, and they don't get warmed up in the paint. They start shooting half-court shots or deep threes, like they even get warm. So it's just like the whole dynamic has changed. But, I'm someone who obviously played in a different era, but I love this era and I love this style of basketball.
Yeah, because before, like when you get in the gym, like any hooper, you want to get a couple bunnies under the rim, a couple layups, get going and everything. And when you were coming in the league, right, you came in as like, you were a second rounder, did a UCLA, everything. When you were in college at the time, How did you see your future playing out into going to the NBA? Did you foresee yourself having a long career? And how did you switch up your game over time to really stay current with how the league was evolving?
Well, I at UCLA, I was an undersized four man. So I had played point guard and wing my whole life, but we had a great recruiting class the year before mine and the year I came in. So, I told the coach I just want to get on the court. So I was kind of playing a power forward position, and this is before small ball was what it is now. I mean, now small ball is the game, but back then it was different. So, playing at UCLA, obviously I had aspirations to go into the
Mm-hmm.
league, and I worked my butt off to be able to get there. But when I got there, it was the traditional point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center. So I had to really do a lot of catching up because I was 6'8",
Mm-hmm.
so I had to go back out to the wing. So it took me a few years to kind of just get that guard game or the wing game down. But throughout my career, I kind of slowly saw the game change into small ball. So it was really, towards the end of my career, I was able to play 2 through 5 almost, just depending on what the matchups were. So, my career was a grind. It didn't start easy. The first handful of teams, I was on 1 year deals and bounced around a little bit, but I kind of feel like I found my footing in the 2007 season with the Warriors on that We Believe
Oh, that's
team. And then,
crazy.
from there, just was a consistent, fixture. Whether I was starting or one of the first guys coming off the bench, I was definitely always in the mix.
I want to ask you about that Baron Davis dunk on, was it
Kirilenko.
Kirilenko? Yeah, that was one of the greatest in-game dunks. Like, you watching that live, how did you react to that? I mean, because I think I was in grade 6, 7 at the time, and I was like
Hmm.
watching the playoffs, and I remember the series you guys played against the Mavericks. It was like, I think Don Nelson had you guys playing super fast, like up down, up down, up down. But back to that dunk, like, how did you, like, when you saw it live, like, what was your first reaction, like, when you saw it happen?
Literally, like everyone else, like a oh my god, and I cover my face. Like what did I just witness? Obviously, getting a chance to play with Barron in college and then playing again with them in the NBA was a blessing. And he was someone that, to me, if he didn't get injured, he had an opportunity to be a top 5 point guard all time. I mean, his size, strength, speed, skill level, no holes in his game, played both sides of the ball. He was special. But that dunk in particular kind of came out of nowhere because he was beat up. He had a bad knee and a bad back. And all of a sudden, he turns the corner. And, I really feel like Kirilenko was the one that beat us in that series. He did such a great job of guarding Steven Jackson and Baron Davis at times that he was the stopper in that series and kind of put us away. But Barron definitely got him that one particular play, and it was incredible.
Yeah, even the celebration was iconic.
Right, lifting the
Lifting the
shirt up.
shirt up, man.
Most definitely, man. So I want to like get into your time playing with Kobe, man, because
Hmm.
looking into your repertoire and just like your time as a Laker, there was a lot that must have been learned with your relationship with Kobe, But I'm curious because you've talked about being on the court with him a lot, but what are some of the things you learned being off the court with Kobe?
Kobe was just different. Obviously on the court he was the Mamba, but I just got a chance to know the person off the court. The behind the scenes, and he was just cool, relaxed, a shit talker. Laughed, had a good time. But I think one thing that I would say I learned is taking the same discipline that he played with and that athletes have in the game and applying that to our next career. So, obviously he was taking off in business, during, with his unfortunately untimely death. But, just to be able to take that same passion and energy and attention to detail from the court to the business space is something that I definitely picked up on that he was all about and something that I was about. And when I saw him and had him, he kind of explained that to me. I was doing something right because I was already kind of thinking like we're naturally trained to get up and be disciplined, be up at 6 a.m. and get on the track or start with weights. But now we're getting up that early. We get on emails and conference calls, so it's kind of just transitioning to what was next and to have the same discipline and approach that we had in the NBA to business.
Yeah. As a player, you were like you were a great defender, can shoot the three, And I remember like there was like you're a very chippy player from like what I saw on TV, and there was like one play, and I know what play you're about to ask me, where you were inbounding the ball, but from the angle you're inbounding it, Kobe's guarding you. What actually happened on that play? You know, like now that I have a chance to ask you, it's been something that's been a staple in like every top 10 ESPN Sports Center. But what happened from that angle? Were you actually throwing at his face, or was it just there was like
Nah, I wanted to fight. I wanted to fight him.
really? Eh?
Kobe was a guy obviously who was tremendous talent, but he's also he tried to mentally dominate as well. So he would do little dirty shit like elbow you, grab
Mm-hmm.
you. That particular game, he'd elbowed me probably 3 or 4 times. The ref didn't call nothing. So I was to the point where like, fuck basketball, we're gonna fight. And on that at that particular play, it wasn't planned. Literally, when I tell this story, literally my arms did it all by themselves. Like it wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna fake the ball in his face. I literally just did it because I really wanted to just throw the ball at him. Like I wanted to fight. That's where my mind was. So I faked the ball, not realizing how close it came to him, obviously, until it's all over every broadcast after that, and literally was, eyelashes away from smashing him in the face. And, the fact that he didn't flinch, just goes to show what kind of dog and competitor he was.
Yeah, just the ball to get that close to your face, and it's like psychotic.
Right.
Like, how do you not react
Yeah.
to that?
I mean, we flinch at pillows being thrown at us or someone acting like they're going to hit us, and there was a full-fledged ball coming from me because he knows I would have hit him. And the fact that he didn't flinch, that's just how in tuned he was. And it was, again, he was just different, special.
So one thing that was interesting was, hearing that you guys wake up at 4:30 a.m.
No, that was him.
That was him. That wasn't y'all.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah. No, I mean, he used to invite me out to Orange County to work out with him. And I thought, okay, I would drive in the morning. It's like an hour and some change. He's like, no, we're going to be up. So you need to get a hotel out here. I'm like, oh shit. Okay. So I, went and got a hotel out there, and we're on the track at 4:30 before the sun even comes up. And we're running laps and sprints and doing different kind of things. And then, from there we're in the gym, and we lift weights so hard I feel like I can't even lift my arms up. And then from there, we're to the court to get shots up. And I was someone who obviously prided myself on working hard, and I did work very hard. But getting a chance to work with him was just a different level. Just to see how hard he goes, how serious he takes it every single day. And obviously the finished product was, one of the greatest players of all time. So he was obsessed with trying to be the greatest player ever to live, and he came damn close to it, if not did it.
Most definitely. Now, with you being on like 6+ teams or on 7 teams, right? What did you learn about being a team player that now, translates into being in the business world? Because being a star athlete, it's a different mentality that you got to have to switch into, being either a role player or, fitting into the different modes of a team, right? So I would love to know like some of the strategies you must have learned from being in multiple teams.
Yeah, I mean, I just obviously being a team player, being a role player, I've always been to the notion of, I'd rather be a small piece of something big and then own a big piece of nothing. I think obviously, the goal now is to have ownership. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And everyone wants to be owners, and obviously that is the goal, and that's what we want to do. But I've always been open to situations that I'm in that I am a owner. I would rather, bring people in and give them equity that I feel like can strategically help a business play. And obviously it would lessen my percentage, but at the same time, it's going to grow the business. So again, like the way I look at it is, I'd rather have a small piece of something big where it's mine, but I've, delegated out shares to people that are going to make the business better than to have a whole company that isn't worth shit, because it's mine, I'm owning it. I don't want to give none of this out. So I just think obviously being a team player and playing in team sports so long, you realize that, I always say, like the fist is stronger than a finger. You know what I mean? I love when people are able to come together and, become stronger than trying to be like one person that stands out and doesn't, turn into anything. So that would probably be the main thing I feel like I took from sports and have brought to businesses, understanding your strengths and weaknesses and strategically aligning your business with people who you feel like can help in multiple different ways.
Yeah.
That's
Because you
huge.
notice that with you notice that with players who come in the league, right? Like you're the man in college and high school, but then you got to adapt towards actually serving for the bigger purpose, towards like winning a championship, right? And like sports and business are so synonymous in like many different ways, and like how you work together, how you build towards something. Not everyone can be the number one guy. Like even though you were the number one guy on the team before, like you got to spread out. Like if someone's better at you in doing that certain role, let them come in and maybe play the number two. But at the end of the day, you're going to win a championship if you stick to that core belief that, okay, you're better serving this. Let's all drive towards that championship and give it a shot.
Well, I just feel like, one thing I remember Doc Rivers saying is just like, be a star in your role. Obviously everyone in the NBA was a star in high school or if they're overseas on their overseas team. And then obviously you're a big fish in a small pond. When you go to college, obviously the pond is, has a lot more big fish in it. So you got to kind of find your way there. And then, when you get to the NBA, the superstars are, there's a handful of superstars. And, as good as some guys are star role players. You know what I mean? So, my goal was always just to be a star in my role. I knew what my role was on the, my role was to, bring defensive intensity, rebound, hustle, do the little things, knock down the shots when I'm open and bring good energy. And I think what messes a lot of people up in their career or people that don't end up, who are talented, that don't end up having a long career is because they don't buy into their role. Again, there's ton of roles on a team. And if you can buy into being in that role, I was fortunate enough to play as long as I want. Rarely does someone like me, I was a role player, rarely does someone like me get to walk away from the game. Normally, like the phone just stops ringing. But, I was able to win a championship. I had 2 more years on my deal, and I just decided, hey, I'm ready for what's next. And I was still paid for those 2 deals because my money was guaranteed. But I just felt like, hey, I had a 15-year run. I'm missing a lot of time with my kids. I'm ready to see what this next chapter of my life holds. And I was able to walk away. But, I could have played another 2 or 3 years because I knew exactly what teams were looking for when they brought me in.
Yeah, I wish you came on the Raptors, man, because we needed a 3-and-D guy at the time. I think after the Warriors run was over, but that's when you're kind of entering the media space.
Yep.
Yeah. And speaking on the media space, man, as your career was ending, did you have an inclination to be in media, or were you considering other options towards like after your NBA life?
Yeah, I had no idea that the media would be an option and it would be something that I would, elevate in. I wanted, I'm a big cannabis advocate. So when I first got out of the NBA, I wanted to kind of try to help change the policies in the NBA with the 4 random tests. So myself and my brother Al Harrington, who has a cannabis company as well, we were, flying out to New York and meeting with the Players Association and the NBA about, their regulations on cannabis. And, happy to say that obviously we didn't change the rules, but I think we are a small part of people just kind of making them understand that, how beneficial this plant was. So that was my first goal coming out of the NBA, was to kind of be the shield for these players and find out a way to, hopefully stop these drug tests from popping up and messing people's careers up. So, small part of that. But then a friend of mine always used to tell me, like, you were so well spoken in your interviews, you should try being an analyst or, doing games. I'm just like, nah, I think I had enough of basketball. I want to do something else. She's like, well, just try it one time. And if you don't like it, I'll leave you alone. And I tried it and I liked it. You know what I mean? And I was getting positive feedback and people were saying I was pretty good at it. So I kind of started taking it serious and studying up on it and, treating it like how I treated basketball. Like I watched film and made sure I watched the games on my off time so I know what I'm talking about. And, lo and behold, I kind of started to climb the ladder in the media space and doors started opening. A podcast presented itself. I did my due diligence to kind of learn that and brought my brother Steven Jackson in and, signed a deal with Showtime with no sizzle reel, just me pitching an idea of what I thought a cool show would be. They bought it. And, the first year out of the gates, we win Sports Podcast of the Year. So, again, and through that, more doors have opened. So really, I have to say media has been really the driving force behind my retirement. And, outside of investments I've made, just as far as me continuing to climb in the media space, with working at ESPN and working for the Sacramento Kings, working for the LA Clippers, having my podcast, I just really feel like I've been able to kind of find a home in this media space. And, I'm going to run with it.
Yeah, man. Congrats on that.
Yeah, congrats
Appreciate
on that. Especially one of your most recent episodes with Will Smith. That was legendary.
Yeah,
That was
man, it
big
was
time.
dream come true. You know what I mean? When I created this show in I think 2018, it was just like, damn, if we can ever get Will Smith, I'll be on top of the world. And lo and behold, a little bit over 3 years, almost 4 years later, the stars aligned, and he was gracious enough to give us a little bit of his time, and it was amazing. I just feel like that unfortunate Oscar slap kind of not necessarily damaged him, but people wanted to have it define him. And I think
Yeah.
he's been a hero for the black community for so long, and has always kind of walked the straight and narrow and never really been in trouble. And all of a sudden, people want to turn one incident into this is who he is. So I really was happy that he gave us an opportunity to kind of obviously discuss that, but many other things. And I mean, he was just transparent, and he was vulnerable, and he was laughing, and he cried, and he was talking shit, and it was just a really
Hmm.
dope interview that I hope everyone gets a chance to see, because I think it was needed for both of us.
One
Yeah,
thousand
he was like
percent.
very vulnerable in the whole
Yeah,
episode.
yeah, no, he was dope.
Now, what struck me was when he talked about the actors spitting on him, and he just took
Yeah,
that.
that
You know
was
what I'm saying?
crazy.
Like that. I don't know about that one. Like I would have to be like cut.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
know what I'm saying?
that's serious.
It's on
No, that
site.
that whole thing was dope. You know what I mean? Because I don't know if you got a chance to. I don't even think it's out yet, but we got a chance. We got a chance to see the movie, and that particular character, he played his role so well. So when he said that he spit on him and was like in character, like if you see the whole thing, like once you see the movie, he said like he went right when everyone checked in, like he went and stayed on his like his little tent that was on site. Like this dude was locked in, and he played the role so well, you would think he really hated black people. That's how fucking good the guy was at the role. But when he said he spit on him and all that kind of shit, I'm with you. Like, okay, we're acting and shit, but don't you ever fucking spit on me.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like oh my
All right,
days, man.
That's
that's
disrespect, man.
different. That's
That's
different.
yeah, exactly. So yo, one thing as podcasters, we're studying the game, and one of the things that you did that was legendary is have your podcast be on two networks. You know what I'm saying? Could you break that down for the podcast creators that are listening to the show?
Yeah, so what happened was obviously very thankful and happy to be in partnership with Showtime, but after the first season, I really didn't feel like their offer to us matched what we brought to the table. I felt like we
Yeah.
grew Showtime basketball obviously to what it is today, but at the time it was growing very fast, and I just didn't feel like their offer matched, and they were kind of stood on their offer. So I said thank you, but I'm gonna look around. I'm gonna see. I feel like we have something special here. So I personally started calling and really learning the business and talking to Apple and Spotify and Amazon and you name it. I talked to him, and by the time Showtime kind of came back around, I developed a really good relationship with iHeart. So I told Showtime, I was just like, obviously, I would love to return. Now that the money is representing what we bring to the table, but I also want to bring iHeart into the fold. And, we all sat down and talked and figured out that iHeart can do the audio side of it because since, they're the biggest radio distributor, I think, in the world, and that Showtime would do the digital side along with YouTube. So right there, we were able to merge and get paid for not only our audio because some podcasts are just audio. So we were able to get a very good salary for the audio side, and then also the same deal for the digital side. So we were able to really literally double up on the same show, which I know a lot of people at the time weren't doing. Some people may do it now, but at the time you're in with your one company, and that's kind of it. So I was able to kind of somewhat change the game, so to speak, and be able to bring iHeart and Showtime to the table together, and was able to get paid off of both.
And Matt, in deals like that, of course they're paying you for having your show on their platforms, but in terms of like ownership over you know, your show, right? Like, how does that
hmm
work? Do they want in perpetuity? Maybe when your contract is over, they still want to make money
No,
off of you,
no, no.
but
So what? No, what they did was, obviously we signed. I think we signed 2-year deals at a time. So we
mm,
just signed a new 2-year deal with Showtime, and our deal is up this month with iHeart. And obviously there's a few. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. and our deal's up with iHeart, and we'll return to them. We're just working out the numbers right now. But how ownership works, I was again, I was new to the game when I first came in, and I had someone that swore he knew what he was doing. Negotiate my first deal with Showtime because it was, a super minimal deal, and my thing was I just want to get on air and kind of show what I'm worth. So this fucking idiot gave 100% of the IP to Showtime. So at the beginning, I didn't own any of something I completely created. Luckily, again, the relationship with Showtime is so good that they ended up giving me 50% of my IP back. So I'm 50-50 partners with Showtime, and iHeart is just something we kind of lease the audio to. So iHeart has no ownership. They're just a distributor for the audio portion of our podcast.
Genius. Genius. One thing I'm curious about is, do you guys have any geofences on that? Like, for instance, you've been playing basketball for years, and China's a huge market, right? So does Showtime be like, all right, yo, you can go to China and release it over there?
I mean, whatever we do, we're in conjunction. So I know people do see it over there because, we have fans from around the world that kind of tap in, and, YouTube goes all the way around the world. So um, we don't personally take it anywhere. I mean, obviously it's available if you want to find it, but we don't personally like get up and say, hey, we're going to go do something in China. But if we ever were to do something like that, obviously it would be a 50-50 split with us and Showtime.
Yeah. And with all the smoke, right? Because right now you're seeing like a lot of players in the NBA start their own podcast because they want to create their own narrative. They want to tell their own stories. What is it that made All the Smoke such a cultural staple, like than any other podcast that's started by other NBA players? I mean, I can think about like Road Trippin', Old Man and the Three is a great show, but yours is somewhat eclipsing everybody like by a mile. What is it that you and Stack speak about just to make it pop? Is it just the chemistry between you two? Because every NBA player drops a show, but it never really gets on the radar. So I want to get your thought process behind making All the Smoke such a big hit piece compared to other players, because every other NBA player brings other people to interview, but it just never really gets there. What's that X factor that you guys have that no other person has?
Well, I appreciate that to begin with. And yeah, there are some other, Draymond Show, Old Man and the Three, Road Trippin', Knuckleheads. All those guys are my brothers. And, I'm happy for everyone to get out and create and be able to tell their own story, because for so long, everyone else has been telling our story. I think what separates us is, I think, one, our chemistry. Jack and I are real life brothers, and probably similar to you guys, where we can talk shit back and forth to each other and not be offended. But if someone else said that same stuff to them, it's like to us, it would be a fight. Like, no, you can't say that because I don't know you like that, But me and Jack can talk shit back and forth to each other and laugh about it. So I think our chemistry is big. And then also I feel like the environment we create around our show, if you ever come to a live tape, when we do a live taping with the guests, we got the music playing, we're smoking, we got food, we got drinks. We want you just to come in and relax before we just jump right on camera. You know what I mean? Like, we want to, we'll sit down and smoke and talk about something completely different than the show before, we actually get on the show. So I think it's an environment we create. And then I also just think our reputation, we've always been outspoken people who've never really been about bullshit. We're not trying to go viral for the wrong reasons. We're not trying to do clickbait. We want to go viral for the right reasons. And, I've always, and I say it every time I talk about this, I want to humanize our guests. Like, everyone knows how great Steph Curry is on the court, but, how did Steph become that player? And what is he like when he's outside of basketball? And I really try to be able to have them feel comfortable enough where they can share who they really are. And, my favorite thing, as a host, is when they say, like, Will just did a last show, like, hey, I've never told no one this story. You know what I mean? And that shows you right there that they feel comfortable enough to share some real shit with us, because as athletes, the media is kind of touch and go, because especially today, the media is so negative, and people try to twist words and say shit to benefit them. That's never been us. Again, we've always been straight shooters. We're always going to, protect our guests and ride for our guests. And I think they appreciate that. So, Yeah, I definitely think we've set the bar. I feel like some shows have kind of caught up to us somewhat. So now we're trying to elevate and do more things with animation, live shows, traveling shows, round tables. So we're going to continue to try to kind of continue to push the bar, so to speak, to continue to kind of be at the top of this game.
When it comes to, competing, you know, one thing you've been able to do consistently is, grow the brand, right? So one of the things that's tough now is like talking about your fellow, ball players without being disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? How do you kind of navigate that? Especially if someone's not performing well and they're thinking that you're shitting on them and you're like, no, I'm just keeping it a buck. Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
Because I know it could be, an up and down situation.
Yeah, it's a real thin line with that, and I touched on this before. I feel like the media now is so disrespectful, and
Yeah.
I'm not for that. I'm not, because I know a lot of these media people that are pounding their chest and talking all this big shit on TV would never say it to that person's face. I only say stuff that I would say to someone's face, and obviously, being a former player, it's tough because our job now is to critique if critiquing is needed. But I feel like there's a way to critique without being disrespectful. I think a lot of people in the media, kind of take it personal and try to personally like disrespect the person, and instead of kind of critiquing their game. And I feel like if you know the game well enough, you can critique their game and talk about plenty of other things without disrespecting the man or disrespecting the woman that you're critiquing. So again, it's a thin line that I walk. And I'm always, someone to I'm always willing to have a conversation if I say something, because I'm not always going to say shit that people like, and I'm okay with that. But I'm someone that's no, I'm willing to have a conversation and hear you out if you feel like I'm wrong. You know what I mean? Because no one's right all the time. But I just feel like so often today that people are crossing that line of disrespect and kind of not keeping it professional from a journalistic standpoint or from a just a analyst standpoint, and really taking personal shots at people, and that's just something I don't do.
Yeah, especially like with things that have been happening lately, with the whole Kyrie Irving situation, with tweeting the link, getting an inside look into the back room before you go into a live taping, let's say on a first take or whatever. Are they giving you narratives of how to portray a particular player? And even if you disagree with it, do you have to go with it just because you're
No,
obligated? It's contractual, or do you just, hey, this is what we're talking about? Give your take and what you think about it. And
I think it's mostly the latter of what you said. Obviously, they want us to be original in our takes, but sometimes they do press certain issues, or hey, what about this? And some guys will go with that, and some guys won't. Sometimes I have, okay, that's a good point. I'll use that too. But for the most part, I can only speak for myself. I try to come up with my takes, from studying and watching the games, and kind of just giving a player's point of view. But there have been times where they say, well, why don't you say this? I'm like, I probably won't say that. That's not me. You know what I mean? It doesn't sound like me. I don't even have that point of view. But again, I can't speak for everyone. Everyone likes to think, oh, you guys are robots and you're controlled by the white man and you say what they want to say. Like, I've never been someone to say something I don't want to or something I don't mean. Now, that doesn't mean I've always been right, because I've had to walk statements back before. And when I'm wrong, and I'll be the first one to tell you I'm wrong. But you're definitely not going to hear someone else's take or someone else's opinion come out as my opinion.
yeah, and there's moments I've seen you on TV where clearly, like, if you really know basketball, you really know like what you or Rich or Perk are talking about. But for the other pundits who have never played ball at your level, it can seem as a viewer very frustrating to watch them act as if they know what you're going through as a player. So how do you collectively as past players manage, like, what are you talking, like, not being able to get like visibly angry, but like, how could you not avoid saying, hey, listen, I played in the NBA, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. That's not how it works. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean it is, and obviously, I'm not saying you have to had played that sport to be an expert in it, but you do have an expert opinion if you've played it. There's plenty of people that haven't played in the NBA that I really respect in the in this space, that to me have quality opinions. And again, even if I'll disagree with Kendrick. you know what I mean, with Perk, and we both played in this space. So you're not always going to agree with your co-hosts or whoever else you're on the show with, and it. But again, if it's ever something I feel passionate about, like I'm gonna go back. I remember Malika Andrews and I went back and forth about a Kobe situation, and I knew she was wrong 100%, and I knew I was right 100%. So with her being the host, you obviously want to be able to articulate your point without, again, even disrespecting her. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, players don't want to be disrespected. Obviously, you don't want to disrespect your colleagues, but, with an expertise that we have in this space, again, if I feel like we're on a panel and someone is saying some shit that's not true or how they think it is and it not is, I have no problem using my words, to be able to let them know, like that's not it. You missed the ball. This is what it's more. This is more of what it's like. And again, just trying to make them see our side because again, we have been there and we've done it.
Yeah, I will give you that. You're a wordsmith when it comes on camera, man. I like
it's hard too because I be cussing so much. Like I'm a cusser, you know what I mean? Like I tell my kids to go do their fucking homework, but it's not like a normal person saying fuck. My go do your homework is just like a regular person saying go do your homework in a higher pitch. I'll say go do your fucking homework, and my kids smile and say okay, dad. You know what I mean? So when I'm on obviously the ESPN platform, I have to catch myself, and a few shits have slipped out here and there. But to be able to use obviously your words and be effective with them is something I try to continue to work on.
Most definitely, man. Now I want to ask something a little bit different. I know you've been to Toronto to play ball, but have you been to Toronto to just have a good time? Go out to eat. Like, have you been able to experience Toronto before?
No, man, my brother played in Toronto. My brother played on the Argonauts and won the gold cup out there. Is that what it's called? The Great Cup.
Great Cup, yeah.
Yeah, my brother has always raved. He said Toronto is like the greatest city in the world. And I never really got a chance to experience one. Every time I fucking came to Toronto, I had to sit in customs for like 2 or 3 hours. So I think my past has always kind of limited me from really kind of just going out there in the off season because every time I go with my team, luckily I'm with my team, so I might sit in customs for 2 or 3 hours, but they get me through. So if I went there solo and I don't really know Drake like that, I don't have no one to get me through customs, man. So I don't want to just be sitting in customs, at the airport. So the times I have been out, I've enjoyed it. You guys have great food, beautiful women, and a great nightlife. But I've really only enjoyed that during the season.
When was the last time you enjoyed Toronto?
Man, it was when I was playing. It was when I was playing. So when was the last time? I want to probably say with that Clipper team because we used to go pretty hard with that Clipper team, and that was kind of towards the end of my career. So I would say, probably going out with those Clipper guys out there. I don't even remember where we went, but we went to dinner, and there was beautiful women there, and there was a vibe. And we went to the club, and there was even more beautiful women there in the vibe. And I was just like, I'm almost glad this place isn't close to California because I would be over here a lot getting into trouble.
Man, all NBA guys that always talk about Toronto. I'm like, what?
Toronto's different.
They love it here, but they won't sign here. I'm like, we have everything for you, but why aren't you?
It's a melting pot, but it's also double taxed. You know what I mean? If you get taxed twice there. So, but again, everything outside of that double tax and how far away it is, it's amazing.
All right, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not the biggest basketball guy. You know what I'm saying? But there's one thing that always rubbed me the wrong way was Kawhi leaving. To Toronto.
Yes, man.
Do you think that was a smart move or a stupid move?
I mean, I look at it from I understand how fans can be mad, but how can you be mad about someone that came in and got you a championship? You know what I mean? I kind of look at it from that standpoint. You know what I mean? And I don't think he ever intended on staying there a long time. He just wanted to get out of San Antonio, and that was the easiest route to get out of San Antonio. But he was able to go to Toronto and win you guys a championship. You know what I mean? And beat one of the greatest teams of all time, although they were, riddled with injuries, but that shit happened. So I understand it was a tough move. And I feel like, if he would have stayed, who knows, what they would have been able to do. But he felt like it was time to move on, and unfortunately, he's really been injury ridden since then. So I'm a big fan of Kawhi. I love that he's with the Clippers because I'm still, a Clipper homer at heart. I would love to see that team get over the hump finally. And shit, if anyone can help him do it, it could be Kawhi.
It's Kawhi, man. Boardman gets paid. And Matt, speaking about championships, man, because you at the tail end of your career, you won one with the Warriors as KD was going down. How was that experience like to go your whole career from the early 2000s and finally get a ring, but not really play a lot, but you still get a championship? Like, well, how did you view that after you reflected as okay, I'm an NBA champion, but there's that disconnect where, okay, I did not really fight every day on the court, but I might have prepped these guys at practice. We were battling out, but it didn't really materialize of you getting enough playing time because they're prioritizing like the younger guys who are like the Clays, I don't know who was on that roster, but you know who they were.
No, it wasn't really so much that. So what happened was I went over there when KD got hurt and, stepped right into the rotation, was playing 20, 25 minutes a game. And literally the game KD came back, I sprained my ankle, like the worst sprain of my entire career. So like my ankle blew up. I thought I broke it. Luckily I didn't break it, but I didn't feel healthy, and I still didn't even feel good when I tried to come back, but I didn't feel like I can even really run or do anything until the Western Finals. And by that time, our team was already 8-0. And me being a veteran player, like, unless you're a superstar coming back off injury, you're not really going to crack that rotation. And I probably wasn't, if you look back on it, I wasn't really ready to play. I still couldn't really move like I wanted to move, but I wanted to try to see if I can get back out there. So I think obviously the experience was great that team let me in and I was able to be a part, on the team and won a championship. But I just looked at it from a standpoint of like, I've grinded my whole career. Nothing's been given to me. And I feel like this was given to me because, again, I was injured. And then by the time I was ready to play, I played sparingly and kind of just had to sit there and cheer the team on, which was hard for me. But at the same time, again, I appreciated the opportunity and I took it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one thing we want to talk about is this, like, working towards the future, because one thing you did mention in the past interviews that you were working on a podcast with AI, and on God, that would be fire. Talk to us. Is that still in the works? Any updates on that?
AI has been going through some stuff in his personal life that kind of has slowed the process down. I would still love to make that happen. We still have it mapped out for when he's ready, but obviously it would be on his time. But I just feel like, he's a cultural icon. The world loves him, and I just want people to continue to show him love because that's what he deserves. So, fingers crossed, hopefully at some point we can really sit down and finalize it because it's, we have it mapped out already. So I'm hoping that is something possibly in 2023 that we can pull together.
No, that's solid. Where do you see the landscape of podcasts growing in the next few years?
Podcasts are everywhere, so when I tell people, I'm going to start a podcast, I was like, all right, how is your podcast going to stand out from others? What's going to make yours different? Why are people going to want to listen to you? So this is really a crowded space. It's a tough space to really kind of excel in. So I see the podcast space continuing to grow. And, if you have something to say, people are going to listen. But if you're also unique at the same time, I think that's how you're going to continue to gain more recognition. So I think the sky is the limit for this podcast space. There's so many new streaming services coming on board that I know that all are going to dip into the podcast space. So again, I'm glad that we're kind of at the forefront right now and navigating this space and seeing where we can take it. I feel like, our show is more than a podcast, and I feel like we can actually be on linear television. That would be kind of my goal for our show. So I'm going to continue to just let the numbers do the talking over at Showtime, and hopefully, at some point we'll have a chance to really have our show consistently. Because right now it's on Showtime. We do the best of once a week, but I would like to actually have our shows on Showtime. So, that's my personal goal, is to get us over to linear television.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's this whole thing about the new media, right? Like where Draymond came out saying the new media. What I wanted to get from you is like, do networks feel a threat from players actually dominating their own voice? Because they might go with a particular narrative, but now with so many players now formulating their own entities, like the boardroom with KD, like he can sit there with his co-host and dissect the game and actually give you like an in-depth analysis. Do you see that as a threat towards the establishment? Are they seeing that? Are there internal talkings of, hey, like these guys are controlling their image? And yeah, what's your take on that?
That's tough because I'm not in those rooms, so I'm not sure what they're thinking. Obviously, there's been a boom in athletes being able to intelligently get their point across. So I think it's always going to be a good thing. I'm sure a lot of people are threatened from it because, we're coming over and somewhat taking people's jobs, whether we don't take them directly out of their hands or not. But our ability, like you mentioned, for KD to be able to sit on his own show and give his takes, someone else is normally asking him that or kind of getting that out of him. And same with all the smoke, our ability to be able to get the best out of people like other people can't. Again, some people love it, some people don't love it. You know what I mean? Some people feel like, damn, we should be doing that, or we're just as good. So, I don't know, again, because I'm not I'm not with the big machine. I somewhat work for a big machine, but I would think if I was a machine that these guys are good, let's sign them. Let's give them what they're worth so they can, be under our umbrella. So again, I can't necessarily answer that question, but I just know that it's great that there are more athletes and more people being able to paint their own stories and create their own narratives and not having other people do it for us.
For athletes that are looking to get into the media space, what advice do you have for them?
You got to want it. You know what I mean? And not all athletes, because you play, are cut out for media. Some guys can't get their point across. And hopefully you have good people in your corner to tell you, like, bro, this shit ain't for you. You know what I mean? But if it is for you and you're serious, you got to treat it just like you treated the game. You got to study it. You got to put the time in it. You got to have something to talk about. You got to be relatable. You got to be personable. And yeah, and that's it. I mean, obviously, athletes are going to have a chance because, everyone always wants to know what we think. And if you're able to really get your point across, there are going to be opportunities for you to capitalize on that. So it's a very crowded field, but to me, the more the merrier. Like I said, I love that everyone has a chance to tell their own story. So I think it's only continue to grow, not just athletes, but I think across the board, more and more people are just doing podcasts. So I think at some point it's really going to start taking over, maybe not the major news outlets, but kind of the smaller news outlets are going to probably disappear because what's the point of talking to them if you can't talk to ESPN or a TNT?
Mm-hmm.
What's the point of really, because with all the smoke is going to get someone, old man at three is going to get someone, the boardroom's going to get someone. So it's really like I think we're kind of competing with not necessarily the top tier, although we sometimes are neck and neck with the top tier people. But I think like the next people in line, I think podcasts are kind of wiping those people out.
No, most definitely. As we work towards wrapping up, I got to ask this: who do you see taking the Eastern Conference?
I love Boston right now, man. And despite all the shit they went through in the offseason and them not really having Robert Williams right now, I really like them. I think when they get Robert Williams back, it's only going to help. And then I also like Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee, Middleton is back, and I think they're going to be. So those are my two in the Eastern Conference. Although I like Toronto, you never know. Toronto's solid, you know what I mean? But I feel like they may be missing one key. I think they have a lot of good young talent. And shout out my brothers, Rico Hines and Earl Watson, former UCLA teammates that are over there coaching now. I really like that team. I just don't think they're as good as Boston or Milwaukee. And then out of the Western Conference, I feel like Golden State will rise to the top. And if Kawhi can stay healthy, I think it'll be the Clippers and Golden State battling in the West, and it'll be Boston and Milwaukee battling in the East.
What about Memphis, man? Memphis is a
I like
tough
Memphis.
team.
I think Memphis is next in line. I think
Yeah.
once, CP is gone from Phoenix, and I think once this Warrior team, I think this Memphis team will take the crown, like not the title, like the championship title, but I think they'll, hop over the Warriors within the next 2 years, maybe. They feel like
Mm-hmm.
shit. If they were healthy last year, they should have won. You know what I mean? So I really like
Mm-hmm.
this Memphis team. I'm not sure if they're ready yet. I feel like they don't necessarily have a consistent number two, although Bane is playing good basketball this year. I don't know if he's a consistent number two in the playoffs. Um, but John Morant is the future. The way his team acts is the new NBA, and I love it. They're jumping around, they're shooting music videos. It seems like every interview. these guys are just having fun with basketball. And I think I know some of the older people don't like it, but again, I coach younger kids, so I see how they act. So I love the way Memphis is acting. Oh, that's my little man with his haircut. I love the way Memphis is acting. I love the way Atlanta with Trey Young and DeJounte Murray. I think like this new shit talking, having fun basketball is here to stay. So I think Memphis is definitely going to be have something to say in the next 2 years, 3 years about who's where the top where the Western Conference runs through.
Yeah. And speaking about the youngins, man, I know you got three boys and your twins, like they're growing. Like I remember like when you're playing, they're like little boys, but now they're hooping on the circuit. How do you feel about like them hooping and like are they trying to follow your footsteps? How are you guiding them in the basketball journey? Like walk us through that.
I love them. I want them to be happy. I want them to love what they're doing. Obviously, basketball is something they've migrated to because of me, but I want to give them every opportunity to be better than me. To me, they already shoot better than me. These guys are some shooters, so I just think my whole goal with them is to not push them. I want them to love it. And then once they start to fall in love with it, which is kind of like a year ago, now I'm going to put them in the best situations. Outside of me training them here and there when I have time, I'm putting them with the best trainers. They're going to start strength and conditioning. So my whole goal is to peak at the right time. I feel like basketball is so everyone thinks their child's going to the NBA and they're so caught up in stats and rankings. And I try to tell my kids and my team, it's just like being the best 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? Like you want to continue to improve. And when it's time to peak, your junior, your senior year, going into college or wherever you're going from high school, to me, that's the time to peak. So, I think that's the scale that my boys are on. I think they're going to peak at the right time and they're going to be tough. But even with that said, there's no guarantee they're going to be able to make it. So whether they make it or not, I just want to make sure they're prepared. They have their own podcast called the Barnes Boys Podcast. It's super dope. And, I'm teaching them the business behind that and understanding how big content is in this space. And they got a couple deals brewing. So, whether it's sports or whether it's business, I just want to make sure that they're prepared for, this world.
Nah, that's
Man,
huge.
respects for you showing them the way, man. That's big. That's big time.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man.
it.
Awesome, man. As we work towards wrapping up, any quote that has impacted you that we could share with our audience?
Quote. It's part of a Tupac quote. Like I think he says something to this effect that I won't change the world, but I hope I spark the mind that does. I'm always out here, being fortunate enough to have made it and lived out my dream, trying to encourage and motivate the next to do it. You know what I mean? So I just hope that, through my actions and through my work and through my charitable causes and me giving back, that I spark the mind that, brings the world whatever the world is looking for.
No, that's beautiful. With that being said, the house is what you can control. So control your grind and control your life. I'm Alex.
And I'm Owen Osinde. And
I'm Matt Barnes, man. I appreciate you guys.
There we go.
There we
Awesome,
go.
man.
There we
Awesome
go,
everything,
man.
y'all. Boom.